Hello and welcome to Friday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic, where today's puzzle is by the ever-popular and brilliant Joseph Namer. It's called 5K5T, which I think must be referring to the fact that there seem to be only 5 killer Sudoku cages in the grid and 5 thermometers in the grid. Anyway, it's appeared on Logic Masters Germany to rave reviews, so we ought to be in for an absolute treat. Now, before we kick off, I have big news. Our Arrows app should be out, at least on Steam and on App Store, by the time you can watch this video. It's scheduled for release, I believe, at 8 PM UK time today, and I'll put links under the video in case you're interested. It may also be out on Google Play, but the process for releasing on Google Play is different and out of our control, so do check. The puzzles, the app's got puzzles by some of the world's great constructors, so people like Sam Kappelman-Lyons, Christoph Seeliger, Shai, Prasanna Seshadri, Richard Stolk, Bastien Valgem, Kodek, Fistemafel, as well as Mark and me. So if you are, and whether you're a complete beginner in terms of Arrow Sudoku or literally the world's best Sudoku solver, there will be puzzles for you to enjoy in the game. So do check it out. We've been working on it for literally months and we're very proud of it and we hope that you love it. So yeah, let us know. Anyway, with all that said, let's get to Joseph's puzzle and I will read you the rules. We have got normal Sudoku rules apply. In cages, digits must sum to the small clue given in the top left corner of the cage, and digits cannot repeat within a cage. So normal killer Sudoku rules, so those 4 squares have to sum to 27. Obviously you can't repeat a digit in the cage. And along thermometers, digits must increase from the bulb end, so normal thermometer rules as well. So that means, look at this thermometer for example, whatever goes in the bulb, let's make it a 2, we then have to treat the bulb a bit like, or the digits a bit like mercury rising along the thermometer. So this square's got to be a higher number than the 2. It doesn't have to be a 3, it could be a 4, that could be a 6, that could be a 9, and that would be a perfectly valid way to fill the thermo. What you can't do is start, going backwards or repeating digits. So don't do that. You'll get the puzzle wrong. So with all that said, the way to play the puzzle is to click the link under the video as usual. Now I get to play. Let's get cracking. I have no clue how difficult this one is, by the way. Joseph's puzzles are normally, I'd say, the sort of upper edge of average. They're not normally absolute monsters, but they're not normally giveaways either. And they always contain beautiful logic. So we should be, it should be excellent. Right, I'm not seeing much immediately by way of these killer cages. So a 27 cage in 4 cells does have to have a 9 in it because 8765 only adds to 26. Don't ask me how I know that. Too many Sudokus in my life. That's how I know that. Seeing literally nothing else, to be honest. You don't have to have a 1 in a 14 cage of size 4 because 2, 3, 4, 5 add to 14. So probably we're going to have to focus on this thermometer. Now, what you're not going to see me do is to highlight all the possible options. It's not long enough to deserve that. So it's 6 cells long. So what we can say is that, if this square was a 1, for example, 2, 3, 4, 5, the minimum value for this is 6. So there are effectively 3 degrees of freedom. Each potential cell on the thermometer could be one of 4 different numbers. So that square's a little bit interesting, I think, because that has to be a reasonably high digit. In fact, let's pencil mark that digit. This one deserves to be pencil marked. These ones, not so much. But this one is interesting because, maybe it's interesting in 2 ways. It sees a 20 cage and it sees a 21 cage. So I can see, for example, that if this is a 9, those squares would have to be 6, 7 and 8 to get to 21. Similarly, if that's a 9, that has to be 5, 7, 8. That would be the only way of getting to 20 in 3 cells. So I'm not sure what this means, but it definitely feels to me like there's some There's some constraints emerging from this cell having to be relatively high. Okay, that's not actually given me anything though, I don't think. Right, maybe we've got to think about geometry then. So I'm looking down column 6 and I'm wondering where we're going to put a 9 in column 6. Because the thing to remember about a thermometer is you simply cannot put a 9 anywhere on a thermometer unless it's at the very end. Because obviously if you try and put a 9 here, for example, well, what are you going to put in that square? A digit that's not going to be valid for Sudoku, so don't do that. So the 9 can't go in any of those squares. It can't go in a 3-cell 11 cage. So the 9 has to go in one of 3 positions in that column, which I will accept is not exactly what I was hoping for. Right, okay, but this is interesting. Look at column 9 and ask where 9 can go, because we can't put 9 down in these 3 squares in box 9, because if we do, we know these squares here have a minimum value of 27. If we make that a 6, and we make, obviously that those 3 will add up to 21. So these have a minimum value of 27. Now 27 plus 9 is 36. Can you make 5 digits add up to 36 in a Sudoku in just 5 cells? No, you can't, because 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 add up to 35. So you can't put 9 there, and that then restricts 9 heavily in column 9. Look, it can't go partially along a thermometer. So it looks like we're looking for some sort of fish here. A swordfish is what I'm going to be searching for. Why do I say that? Well, it's because the 9 is locked into one of 3 positions in column 6, one of 2 positions in column 9, and those 2 positions in column 9 overlap. They're in the same rows as 2 of the positions in column 6. So if I can find one more column with this restriction in it, we are good to go. And we can cook with gas. Now, where are you, little swordfish? You are... Don't be recalcitrant now. Where are you? Come out. Come and see Uncle Simon. And... No, you're not there, are you? Where are you? Sorry, I'm just missing this. I feel sure this is important and it feels right, but I'm not seeing where it is. If I shake my head a lot, I'll spot it then. No, maybe it's not there then. That's really very surprising. This feels so... It feels really clever, like this logic has been inserted into the puzzle. You know, this 11 cage is perfect to avoid there being a 9 in it. The shape of this thermometer is perfect to lock the 9s into these positions. The column 9 logic, locking a 9 out of here, it's just gorgeous. It must be relevant. It just must be. Oh dear. What on earth am I missing here? Sorry, if you're all shouting at your screens. I am not intending to be daft. I really am not. So this could be a 9. No, I can't find it. I can't find it. If that's a 9, we do get heavy restrictions here and here. Can we somehow disprove this from being a 9? Is there a simple way of doing that? Right, okay, I can disprove this from being a 9. It's far from simple to do it, though. It's quite beautiful, though. It's quite beautiful. So let's ask the question, is this a 9? And the answer is no. And the reason... The reason involves almost every box of the Sudoku. That's quite lovely. I don't think we need this box to prove it. Well, we do in a way, because we have to do the X-wing logic. This is really interesting. Right, so can this be a 9? Now, the first question to ask is, if this is a 9, where does 9 go in box 7? Well, it can't go in a 14 cage, because the other 3 digits would have to add up to 5, and the minimum you can make 3 digits add up to 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 6. So the 9 has to be in this domino. I might as well pencil mark it. 9s are in these 2 squares. Now, if this is a 9, think about what happens in column 6 and column 9. We know that this square is not a 9. So this pattern is an X-wing. What does an X-wing mean? Well, the simplest way of understanding an X-wing is you can see in these 2 columns the 9s are locked into one of 2 spaces each time. So there's basically a binary state of the world. Either this square will be a 9 in the finished grid, and if this square is a 9, where are you going to put the 9 in column 9? It will have to be there. Now, the only other position that can exist in the finished grid is that this square is not a 9. But if this is not a 9, we know that will be a 9, and we know that will be a 9. So the critical thing to realise is that there's always a 9 in one of those 2 squares, and there's always a 9 in one of those 2 squares. So there's never 9s in any of those squares, and that is the key. Because look now what happens. If there's no 9 in this domino, there's a 9 in this domino, and now the 9 in box 4 we have to look at has to be here, but that's impossible because we know there's a 9 in one of these 2 squares. So you cannot have a 9 in this position. It simply doesn't work because of the way that the geometry unwinds. And that's completely, I mean, that is visualizable because I did visualize it, but it's not straightforward. So that means this is not 9. And that means, yes, now that means we can't fill the 21 cage with 6, 7 and 8, because if we do, this square is broken and has no value, so there must be a 9 in the 21 cage. And that's going to mean the other 2 squares add to 12, which means they're either 5, 7 or 4, 8, and that means we have to say bobbins, because that hasn't resolved. And all I've done through that amazing chain is locked 9 out of this square. Oh dear. Well, can I do the same thing with that square then? If that's not 9, do I get the same problems involved over here or not? If that's not 9... This is a slightly strange question, isn't it? Normally you ask if something is something. But if this is not 9, what does that mean? If that's not 9, then we have an X-wing. Let me just try and visualize this. Then we have an X-wing. Oh, right, I've got it. This is really, really clever. Okay. Right. If this is not 9, I think the point is to think about where 9 has to go in row 7. Because if this is not 9, we know we've got the X-wing on 9s up here. Therefore, we know we've got a 9 in one of these 2 and one of these 2 squares. Now, the effect of that is really profound. In box 1, we've already thought about it. We know that there's a 9 in one of these 2 squares. Let's make those purple. That purple means possible 9. Let's get rid of the 9 here because we're hypothesizing this isn't a 9. So there's a 9 in one of these squares. But look, we know there's a 9 in one of those 2 squares. So in this box, because we can't put a 9 partially along a thermometer, there is a 9 in that domino. Now look at box 7. You can't put a 9 in a 14 cage. We've already looked at that. So this is a 9. And this is absolutely profound because now we know that thinking about row 7, if this is a 9, it's a 9. If it's not a 9 This must be a 9. So the 9 in row 7 is in one of two places. And that, why do I think that's important? Well, I think it's important for this 20 cage, because this 20 cage cannot contain a 9, and if it can't contain a 9, it's got to be 5, 7 and 8, and if it's 5, 7 and 8, we have our first digit in the grid, which is this is a 6, and this 6 is justifying my decision not to pencil mark the thermometer, because now it's in the 6th position, which means we can go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That square's very oh no, I was about to say it's a naked single. It's not a naked single because it could be a bobbins. It could be a 3. I was thinking it could see the 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 and the 6, 7 and 8, so it had to be a 9, but look, I think it can be a 3 as well, so that's annoying. This was almost a good deduction. Now, what next? We've got... There's a few things I can see here, actually. I think 1s and 2s look like they're limited in this row, but also 1s and 2s and where they go in the 11 cage, because the thing about an 11 cage is what happens if it doesn't have a 1 and or a 2 in it? Well, then it could be made up of 3, 4 and 5. 3, 4 and 5, and here is a knowledge bomb, add up to 12. So there must be a 1 and or a 2 in an 11 cage. Well, that means that square's got to be a 1 or a 2. Yeah, this is gorgeous. Right, okay. So now have a look down column 6 again and think about this domino. Does this domino contain a 3? Well, if it doesn't contain a 3, these two squares would have a minimum value of 6 and 7, because 1, 2, 4, 5 have gone. 6 and 7 is still greater than 11, so there must be a 3 in one of those two squares. If there's a 3 in one of these two squares, that square is a 9. And we do have the effect that I thought we would have, but we had to do some weirdities first to find it. So now this domino definitely contains a 3 and either adds up to 10 or to 9. So this is either 3, 6 or 3, 7, I think. So 8 is now locked into one of those squares. And I'm not sure what we can do with that. Let's come back to row 1 though, and think about where 1s and 2s have to go, because you can never put a 1 and a 2 in a 27 cage. And look at this this sort of left-hand antenna of the insect here. Can you put a 1 or a 2, 3 cells and 4 cells along a thermometer? Well, no, you can't, because you can't put 0 in the bulb. So 1 and 2 in this row are locked out of all, not that one, they're locked out of all of these squares. There's only 2 squares left. So that is a 1, 2 pair. Oh, and yes, yeah, and now we ask the question, we come back to 9s again. Where does 9 go in column 9? We know it's not down here. It's not partially along a thermometer, so it's there. So now I think we can get rid of the purple highlighting. I think it's served its purpose now. Well done, purple highlighting. I'm proud of you. And we stare again at the grid. There's got to be a 3 in one of those 3 squares. We've got a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 quintuple in row 7. So these squares have got to be 1, 2, 3 and 4. Which looks interesting in the context of this. Oh, it is beautiful. Perfect, in fact. Look, so what's the minimum we could make those 6 cells add up to? Well, if we make them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, that's a triangular number which adds up to 21. Now, so they cannot add up to less than 21. So what would happen if we didn't make this domino a 3 and a 4? well then the 6 cells would add up to too small a number. They would add up to less than 21. So the only thing they can be is 3 and 4, which means those squares now are a 1-2 pair, giving us a 1-2 pair in this column. That's probably affecting both of the thermos. These squares now have to be 1, 2, 5 and 6, which means that's no longer a 5. There's definitely a 5 in here. No, that doesn't fix the 11 cage. These squares are now, right, so these squares are now 7, 8, 9. So there's a 7, 8, 9 triple in column 3, which might be interesting. I might not. I don't know. Okay, so what do we do next? We still don't know what our 21 cage is. I still know there's an 8 in one of these 2 squares. Actually, maybe I should try and notate that somehow. Green means something can be an 8. Oh, now, actually, this square might be interesting now, because it can't be 7, 8 or 9, and yet it's 4 cells along a thermometer. Oh, it's maybe not that interesting then. Bobbins. That can be 4, 5 or 6, I think. 1, 2, 3. It's got to be at least 4, and it can't be higher than 6. Yeah, so it is 4, 5 or 6. So there's 2 degrees of freedom along this thermometer. Though that square can't be a 4. No, that doesn't seem to have done it, does it? Okay. So maybe the thing we have to think about is what's going on over here. And these thermometers. Ah, no. This 9 is interesting, look. It comes all the way across there and interacts with that and plonks a 9 into the corner of box 4, which I didn't notice. That's lovely. That gets us a 9 in the 27 cage. 9 is in one of 3 cells now in box 3. 4 cells in box 4. 2 cells in box 5. Oh, this is good now. 7, 8, look, now can no longer be in any of those 7 squares. So there's a 7, 8 pair here, which, is that important? What's that doing? I don't know. It's probably doing something. Oh, I know what it is doing. Yeah, remember, green can be 8. So where does the 8 go now in column 6? It's got to go at the top. Oh, this is, yeah, now we ask where 7 goes in column 6. This is lovely. So 7 now is pushed down into the 11 cage, where it joins its friend the 3. So this is now a 3, 7 pair, and we know that this square is now a 1. And that square's a 6, I suppose, which means that's not a 6. That affects this thermo. If this can't be a 6, this can't be a 5. So that has to be a 3, which means that we can fill in the thermo. That 3, look, that's doing a 3 and a 4 here. This 1, oh. Now, where does the 1 go in the 14 cage? Just exactly into that cell. That can't be a 2. And suddenly we've got somewhere. This 7 now is ruling a 7 out of these squares. So that's placing a 7 in box 7, giving us an 8, 9 pair left behind. And those squares have got to be 4, 5 and 6 to complete box 4. That can't be 4, that can't be 5. So these are 1, 2 and 3 to complete the column. We can tidy up those a little bit, look. Oh, and now the 27 cage has a 4 in it. Because if just by Sudoku on box 1, there's no 4 here, there's no 4 there. So it must be 4, 6 and 8 into those squares in order to get us to 27, which means that square's a 7, this square's an 8. This square's a 6, we've got a 2, 5 pair at the bottom of the grid. 6s have got to go into this domino. And those two squares are 5 and 7, I think, to complete box 1. Now, what should we look for next? We should look at... I still haven't really thought about the 1s and 2s, actually, in probably this thermometer. Yeah, so the left-hand antenna, let's have a look at this. This square has to be at least a 3, 4, 5, so this square is at least 6. It can't be 6, though. Oh, so that's a 7 naked single, is it? Let's double check that. So this has to be at least 3, 4, 5. This has to be at least 6, but it can't be 6, 8, or 9. I think that is a naked single 7. Doesn't seem to actually do anything, though. So now, because this has to be at least 3, we've actually got few degrees of freedom here, haven't we? These each are locked into being one of 2 digits. I was thinking that was going to resolve it, but it doesn't seem to. 8 now in this box can't be in the bulb because you can't put 9 at the end of this thermo. So there's an 8 in one of those 3 squares. In fact, oh no, I was about to say you can't put 7 in the bulb, but you can't put 7 in the bulb because there is already 7 in the box. But you can't put 6 in this bulb either. Or 5. Because you've got 6, 7, 8, 9 triple or quadruple in this row, this square cannot even be 5. Yeah, I don't think this is working though. The 5 can escape into one of these 2 squares. I'm trying to lock these 3 squares down. I'm not doing a very good job of it. Sorry. Ignore me. Not doing anything. Let's go back to something more straightforward. What is there that's straightforward in this position? Is there something that we're missing? It probably is. It probably is this bulb, isn't it? Because this square, well, what can this square be? It can't be a 1 because it's at the end of a thermometer. So that's 2, 4 or 5. So this square has got to be less than 5. So it's 1, 3 or 4. Now, okay, well I'm not sure. I think I was sort of trying to get to this logic, but I've now seen something more straightforward. There's a 1, 3, 4 triple in row 3. And given there's a 1, 3, 4 triple, where does the 4 go in this triple? Well, it's not there, so it's in one of those 2 cells. And if one of those 2 squares is 4, that most certainly isn't. So that's become a 5. That's become a 6. So that isn't 6. This 5 is fixing the 5 and the 7 in box 1. 7 is in one of these 2 squares. 5 is in one of those 2 squares. This 8 is fixing this as a 4 now. And now look at row 1 where we've got this 1, 2 pair. This is a 3, 5 pair. And there's a 3 here. So this becomes a 3, that becomes a 5. Fixing the 5 and the 8 at the bottom. Those 2 squares need an 8 in them. Get rid of the 3s from those cells. Take another look at the grid. Okay. 1, 2, 4 and 5 to place along row 4. So this square has to be 1 or 2 only because it sees 4 and 5. That square can be 1, 2, 4 or 5. This thermo, what do we know about this thermo? I don't feel like we know as much. Ironically, I don't feel like I know as much about this thermo as I knew about that tiny little thermo there. This square could be as low as a 3. 4, 5. So this could be as low as a 5. It can't be a 5 or a 6. Oh, okay. So that is a 7 or an 8. That is more constrained than I thought. It's not great though. Right, so now I have the feeling we're missing something. I'm not sure what it is, but it doesn't feel to me like... It'd be very useful to know what this 21 cage is. There's no 3 in the 21 cage, so there must be a 3 in one of those 3 cells. Ah, right. Hang on a moment. That square is restricted. That is evil. That is an evil square. What can this square be? Well, it can't be 1. It can't be 2. It can't be 3, 4, 5 or 6. It can be 7, and it can't be 8 or 9. That is a naked single 7. Which gives us another digit, I guess. So we get a 7 there. Oh, no. Better than that. Look, that's fixing that as an 8, which is fixing this as an 8 and this is a 9. That square now has to be a 1 or a 2 and can't be a 2. This is getting better. Now this 2 is fixing all of box jobby down here. That's giving us the 2 and the 5. Ah, now look, 5 has just been forced into the 21 cage, so it must need a 7. So we now know the composition of the 21 cage. It's 5, 7, 9. In fact, there's a 7 there, so that's a 7. That's a 5. That's a 9. We've just done the 21 cage. We get the 8. That's forcing an 8 here. Now there's a 3 in this row. That fixes all of this. What do we need here? 3 and 4. Which is giving us a pair here along with our 1, 2 pair. So now we know these two squares are 6 and 7 and they're on a thermometer. So there are probably a few ways of resolving that. That's fixing all of this, look. That's no longer a 5 or a 2, so that is a 4. Which means that's a 4 using our triple along that row. Which means this is a 4 and this is a 3. And suddenly, I think we are. I think we are almost finishing the puzzle here. Whoopsie, that's a 3. I think that was about to be correct, but I was meaning to click on this one, so that should be. It was correct, but it was more by luck than judgment. Now that's a 1. So what do I need in this box? I need 3s, 8s, and 9s. Right, so the 8 goes here, the 3 goes here, the 9 goes here. The 8 goes here, the 6 goes here, the 6 goes here. I need a 4 in one of those. So let's put 4 in, let's put 9 in. This column needs a 5. This box needs a 2 and a 3. And that, I think, is how to solve the puzzle. Absolutely brilliant. Whatever was going on at the start of that, I have no clue. I don't think this was a classic pattern, was it? I mean, it wasn't. It definitely wasn't a swordfish. It was a something. It was a strangeness. So there was a strangeness that emerged in this grid at the start, and the strangeness enabled us to conclude that either this was a 9 or this was a 9. And that was really, really cleverly designed, because it's basically, we had to do some sort of if this then that logic using this putative putative X-wing up here, sort of hypothetical X-wing, and how that interacted both with this cage and this thermometer is not simple. It really isn't. And indeed the cage in box 7. So there was a few things we had to hold in our minds to sort of understand the restriction that applied to that 20 cage, but it's just genius setting again from Joseph. I do really like his puzzles, I have to say. I hope you enjoyed it too. Let me know in the comments. I do enjoy them, especially if they're kind, and do check out the Arrows app. And we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.